May I proceed?
Yes.
I'd like to go back to a couple more inquiries about that notation in your notebook that includes the reference to.
Turn your microphone on, sir.
Let me go back to that notation in your notes of February 1st, 03. You had testified as to the paragraph that was right after February 1st, 03, and then another paragraph that followed after that, family in danger.
Uh-huh.
Who are these killers? Nobody but the press are calling.
Uh-huh.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not that paragraph was written on February 1st, 03?
Well, like I said to Mr. Mesereau, that's a different paragraph with the slant going different, and it's a different kind of writing. I have different style writing, and like I showed everybody, including Mr. Mesereau, I scribble and write all over the place.
Okay, but the question is, do you have an opinion as to whether that paragraph was written on a day other than February 1st, 03?
Yes.
Okay, what is that opinion?
I just wrote it as I heard it, and it was later.
At a later time?
Yeah.
Do you have any way of knowing how much later that was?
Not unless I put a date on it.
And you didn't put a date on it on this occasion?
Huh.
Is your handwriting different in that paragraph than the paragraph that precedes it, the paragraph directly above it?
Yes, as in all, my whole book I have different styles of writing based on urgency. And if I take my time, I really write well, and if I don't, it looks like chicken scratch.
Let's go to the paragraph above it. There's some reference to Mexicans in that, and there are a few references in your notes to that, correct?
Yes.
When did you first hear that reference to Mexicans?
It was when the family first came to the Neverland Valley Entertainment and Gavin came in and went down to the bathroom.
Alright, was that after the 1st of February?
That would have been after the 1st, but I had heard them talk about them.
Objection. Reference to them.
Sustained.
Who are you talking about, them?
The family.
The Arvizo family?
Yeah.
Alright, when was the first time you heard Mark Schaffel speak in a derogatory fashion about the Arvizo family?
Well, unfortunately, Mark is catty and spoke in derogatory terms about everybody. And so the first time, I think, was actually in January. But I don't think I wrote it down till later. You know, not right when he said it, but when I heard it the next time, I wrote it down.
Were you hearing conversation from Mark Schaffel about the Arvizo family as soon as you had read the transcript that was delivered to you by Catherine Mylofsky?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
When did you first start hearing commentary from Mark Schaffel about the Arvizo family?
That day.
What day?
The 24th of January.
And the 24th of January was?
I believe it was the 24th of January.
Was what?
03.
When you received the transcript.
Right.
Did the commentary from Mr. Schaffel about the Arvizo family change over time?
Well, the
Objection. Vague.
Sustained.
You told us that at some stage they were speaking favorably of the Arvizo family?
Right.
Who is they?
Vinny, Frank, Mark, you know, because Mark had already started talking to. He had been speaking to Frank for a while, trying to ingratiate himself back into Michael's world and stuff. And he was informed from Ronald and Dieter, and this is what Mark had told me, that there was this family that the boy had cancer. And so they were wonderful, good people at that time. And so I heard that early on.
Did they discuss the family in a religious context?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
What did they say?
They were deeply religious, so, Catholic I believe is what he said.
Now, you've mentioned the term, crack whore.
Oh, yeah.
And who used that term?
They all did.
When?
Objection.
Sustained.
Who are all, if that sentence is even close to permissible?
Vinny, Frank, Mark.
I'm sorry?
Vinny, Frank and Mark.
Vinny, Frank and Mark all used that term?
Yeah, I double-checked, and I said, did you see them smoke crack? On the ranch? See, that didn't make any sense.
Did anybody acknowledge actually seeing anybody in the Arvizo family smoking crack?
No.
Did you confront each of them with that?
Yeah, I asked them, because it just sounded stupid.
Did all three of them use that expression?
Yeah, they said that. Oh, well, no, Mark told me they were using crack. And then, no, Frank told me she was using. And I was like, oh, whatever. So it was like.
Did they say who in the Arvizo family was using crack?
The mom.
The reference on that note on February 1st, 03, to mom flipping out. Who was it who told you that?
Mark did.
Did he?
Because, oh, sorry.
Did he give you any other information about that?
No, not really, because I don't know what she was flipping out about. I mean, she was kind of, as I said, she was kind of cuckoo, so it could have been anything, I guess.
And the reference to the subsequent paragraph where it says, who are these killers? Nobody but the press are calling.
Uh-huh.
What does that mean, nobody but the press are calling?
Well, the 24th transcript comes, and the press are already calling. They want to ingratiate themselves to either Mark or whoever. That's the game. You know, you get there first. You're buddy-buddy.
Objection. Non-responsive.
Did anybody from the press mention anything about killers?
No.
Did you receive any telephone calls from people voicing threats against anyone?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I never heard any threats coming in.
Did you know anything about threats at all?
Huh.
Other than these statements about killers?
I was hearing about this. That's why I wrote it down. I was like, what the hell? What are the killers?
The conversation you had with Ian Drew where the word, escape, came in, when was that conversation?
Gosh. A while ago.
Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence.
Overruled. The answer is in. Next question.
Did you begin recording conversations with people prior to the involvement of law enforcement?
No.
Why did you record telephone conversations?
Well, everybody had been doing so much shady crap, and I just was like, I was just tired of it, you know. I was just tired, because it was involving me still and ruining my career, and I just figured, you know what? I'm just going to do this for the right people and I am going to do it. And, you know, I hem-hawed for a long time, because I knew it would really, in Hollywood, that would ruin your career.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you don't want people to think that of you. But I did it because I made a choice. You know, like I even told my father on his deathbed. He said, you know, you have to live your life without regret.
Objection. Non-responsive. Move to strike.
As to the last sentence, I'll strike it.
Do you believe there's going to be a consequence for you in your profession for having cooperated with law enforcement?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Have you had a consequence to your profession because of your involvement in this case?
Oh, yeah.
Objection. Relevance. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
What is Steal the Stage, LLC?
It was a company that basically Vinny, Mark, and I don't remember if Frank was involved or not, like I said before, but we decided that maybe we should open an LLC. It was in the office. It was early, whatever, but so that we could possibly do other things outside the realm of Michael Jackson. Not just use Michael Jackson's name for things, but do our own things.
Did you ever begin working on such a thing?
No, nothing ever happened with it.
Was there any project that had ever actually been commenced?
No.
What did you mean by the statement, making money off or with Michael Jackson, in reference to Mark Schaffel?
Well, they would use his name to, you know, make money. I mean, they would, you know, some things he was included and did things with, and then some things, you know, Mark was doing his own thing. So.
Like what?
You know, like him and Dieter wanted to put out some book. You know, it was a coffee table book or something. And it had Michael's authorization, but they were kind of doing it. You know, but I wasn't really, the details on exactly who knew what, or whatever, isn't clear to me. But I knew that that was something that they were pursuing, but it didn't necessarily need Michael's involvement every day like something like working on a charity single did.
Did you believe that that was going to profit somebody other than Michael Jackson?
Objection. Calls for speculation. Leading. Foundation.
It's in response to his questions.
Overruled. You may answer.
Go ahead.
Everybody would have benefited, I'm sure.
Including Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Did you see at any time Mark Schaffel involved in any activity that you believed was done for purposes of cheating Michael out of money?
I think, well, that's why I kind of kept on keeping track. I was trying to figure out what the whole story was. So to answer yes or no, I guess it would have to be probably. I would say yes. He was doing things, and some things.
Like what?
Well, like I don't know if that coffee table book thing was on the level, you know.
Okay.
And there was these MJ speakers. Like where in the heck did those come from? You know, all of a sudden.
What is an MJ speaker?
I don't know. They had some speakers that.
Are you speaking people speaking, or?
Like speakers for his home stereo system. I was just like, where did those come from? And what the world were those?
Did you ever inquire as to whether that was a project that did or did not have Mr. Jackson's permission?
It had his name on it, and Dieter and Ronald were practically living at the ranch, so when they showed up, I just was like, also, they showed up at the RMAs in Las Vegas.
Alright, but did you have any information from any of them that these were projects that were done to the exclusion of Michael Jackson?
Objection. Leading.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
All right, you may answer that, yes, or no. Do you want the question read back?
Yes, please.
All right, but did you have any information from any of them that these were projects that were done to the exclusion of Michael Jackson?
No, not the exclusion. They always said that Michael knew.
Alright, what was Frank Cassio's relationship with Michael Jackson?
He was a family friend.
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
During the time that you knew both Frank Cassio and Michael Jackson, did you see them together?
Yeah, at the ranch and at the studio.
Did you see them interact with one another?
Yeah, especially at the studio.
Did Michael Jackson ever tell you about his relationship with Frank Cassio?
No, Frank told me.
During the entirety of your 2 years of dealing with Michael Jackson or Neverland Valley Entertainment, was Frank Cassidy involved?
Cassidy?
Excuse me, Frank Cassio.
Okay, was he involved?
Was he involved?
Yes.
So was there any time during the time that you were involved with Neverland Valley Entertainment that you were not dealing at one point or another with Frank Cassio?
Gosh, you know what? No, because he was there he would come to the studio, and then, there was the firing.
Objection. Non-responsive.
Oh.
After, no, all sustain that.
Move to strike.
Strike it after, no.
Mr. Mesereau had asked you if you had made the statement in an interview that Debbie Rowe was honest and sincere in her interview.
Uh-huh.
Do you recall making that statement?
Not really, no.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Not by me.
The objection is overruled. And he did answer the question.
I'm sorry.
The answer is in?
The answer is in. He said, no.
Do you believe that Debbie Rowe was honest and sincere in her interview?
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
Mr. Mesereau was asking you questions about your answers to questions put to you by Detective Sergeant Robel in the January 24, 04, interview.
Uh-huh.
Did you have any pre-notice about that interview?
Pre-notice?
Yeah. Did they call you in advance and say they were going to be coming by to ask you some questions?
In the very first time I meet them?
That's right.
No.
Was that interview conducted on the very day that you met them?
Yeah, they just asked me basic questions.
How long was that interview?
God, not more than 30 minutes. I mean, it was just like, where's your car? Is this your computer? Things like that.
And you did cooperate with them, is that correct?
Yeah, I gave them my notes.
Now, in the course of this interview, were they interested in conversations that you had with any of these other people that you've been testifying about today?
Well, yeah, but, I was outside in pajamas, so it wasn't like I was going to go very far.
Is it the case that you were giving them as much information as you were able to recollect on a moment's notice in your pajamas?
Objection. Leading.
About many people?
Move to strike.
Yes. Stricken.
Were you really in your pajamas?
Yeah, I was. I was in my pajamas and freaking out, yeah.
And in this 30-minute conversation, did you give them as much information as came to mind at that time?
Yeah, I mean.
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
What were the difficulties in your being able to recall facts at that time?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I was just extremely nervous. Here was one explosion. Yet another Neverland explosion. So, happening at my front door.
What does the expression, all fingers point to Mark, mean?
He was organizing, informing. He was taking care of some of the business of, paying Vinny and Frank. Money, receipts. It was a lot of, that kind of business going on.
There was a woman Mr. Mesereau asked you about from Japan. There was a woman that Mr. Mesereau asked you about from Japan. His question suggested that Mr. Schaffel stole from that woman. Do you have information about that encounter?
I just know that he had bragged and said that he didn't brag, per se, but he just said, later on I said, well, how did you get that money? And he said, oh, well, she died. It doesn't matter.
Alright. What was the nature of the transaction between this woman and Mr. Schaffel?
She was going to try to buy the rights to, what more can I give? I guess, and hopefully Mark was going to convince Michael to do a show in Japan.
Alright. Did she advance money in that effort?
Yes.
And then she died?
Then she died.
Was it your belief that Mr. Schaffel should have returned the money to the family?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And he did not do that?
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't know exact, contract. Maybe there was some clause in there, but I just thought it was the right thing to do. If somebody dies and you're in it, in the middle of an agreement, then you should give that money back, especially like $1 million.
You gave your point back to Mr. Jackson, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you have a conversation with Mr. Schaffel at that time suggesting that he do the same with his points?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Did you?
I thought we were all giving our points back because that was the right thing to do.
Did he tell you whether or not he would do that?
He never answered me, but then I didn't care anymore.
Do you know whether or not he did that?
I don't know.
Do you know what your point was worth?
Well, I got an offer of $1 million for it from this guy from Korea.
Did you turn it down?
Oh, yeah, I turned it down.
Why?
I mean, Michael gave it to me in the spirit of good faith. And I thought it was, that was going to be worth a lot of money, so I gave it back because I couldn't miss what I didn't have. And I thought, I kind of felt sad for everybody. I kind of felt sad. I loved them and at the same time didn't like what they were doing, but I felt sad for them, and at the same time I kind of figured, I was a good person coming into this, and I think that I'll be an okay person leaving, too, so.
Are you intending on writing a book on this matter?
No, I'm not intending to write a book.
What was the meaning of the reference, the statement to Cindy Montgomery?
The book just means this is a book. This is like a story I don't think anybody would believe. It's outrageous. It's really an outrageous, ridiculous train wreck story.
You said to Mr. Mesereau you weren't allowed to talk on the phone at Neverland. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I was just told by everybody not to talk on the phone. We were always monitored. That's why I didn't really feel bad recording people. I was always monitored, so what the heck?
Who told you that?
Frank, Vinny and Mark.
Object.
Because I would say something, and they would shut me up and say, don't say that on the phone here. And I was like, oh, okay.
You told Mr. Mesereau that Mr. Jackson gave $1 million to Marlon Brando. Is that true?
Yes.
When did that take place?
Right after the 30th anniversary special in New York before September 11th. But the check actually didn't get, because we were stuck there in New York. The check didn't actually get to Marlon Brando until afterwards.
When was the direction from Mr. Jackson to turn $1 million over to Marlon Brando?
Well, he was upset that Marlon Brando got booed and just said, in that kind of deeper voice, he just says, you got to give him $1 million. And we were just like, stunned.
And where did this money come from?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
Were you present at the time Mr. Jackson made that statement?
Yeah, we were in the dressing room. We were in the back.
To whom did he make that statement?
To Mark.
Were you there at that time?
Yeah, we were both standing there, because we were both, Our faces were set to stun, really. You know, I wanted to get booed, so, laughter.
Incidentally, do you know what Marlon Brando did to warrant being booed?
Yeah.
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
Alright, let's go back to the $1 million. Was he paid $1 million, Mr. Brando?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained.
Did you have an opportunity to look at the bank records dealing with that transaction?
I saw the check.
You saw the check. The check was made on whose account?
Neverland Valley Entertainment.
Alright, how long after that encounter was that check written on Neverland Valley Entertainment?
Well, as soon as we got back, because we flew back private jet. So as soon as we got back, you know, he started working and complaining about it.
So was this part of the money that came from the Parviz loan?
Oh, yeah.
This was part of your operations money, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Objection. Leading.
Sustained.
At the time the police came to your house when you were in your pajamas, did they have a search warrant?
They had one with them, but they didn't need to serve it.
And why is that?
Because I believe that you should work with law enforcement.
Objection. Objection. Non-responsive. Relevance.
Sustained.
You've been in the music industry, I think you said, 20 years, is that right?
Yeah, 20 years. Started when I was 18.
Have you been involved with albums before?
Yeah, plenty.
Are you familiar with people putting credits on the album jacket?
They're called liner notes, yes.
Called what?
Liner notes.
Liner notes, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Alright, is it generally the habit and custom of artists to do that for people who they're close to or people who have a particular interest in the production of that album?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Is it generally the case that they hold them in high regard?
Yes.
Would there be people contained?
Objection. Foundation. Move to strike, and calls for speculation.
All strike the last answer. Sustain the objection.
Is there any expectation in the record industry that a person would automatically be included in one of these things?
Huh.
Objection. Foundation. Calls for speculation. Relevance.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Now, Mr. Provencio, on cross-examination you admitted having a discussion with Cindy Montgomery about your notes and saying to her the following. I'll give my lawyer the bullet points, overview, but not giving him my detailed notes. Are you kidding me? That's a book, honey.
Uh-huh.
What is your explanation now for that?
It's like a really bad fairy tale that. It's like a book nobody would believe. I mean, you wouldn't believe it if you read it. It's kind of unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story, I think.
Were you telling the jury when you made that statement in a recorded phone call with Cindy Montgomery you were not referring to your writing a book?
Not at that time.
Whose book were you referring to when you said?
The tale.
When you said, that's a book, honey.
That's a book. It's a tale. It's like an unbelievable tale in a book.
When you said, I'll give my lawyer the bullet points, which lawyer were you talking about?
An entertainment lawyer that I dealt with.
You said, I'll give my lawyer the bullet points, overview, but not giving him my detailed notes. Are you kidding me? That's a book, honey.
Uh-huh.
Are you telling? Excuse me. Are you testifying under oath that you were not referring to your writing a book?
That's true.
Okay, alright. Now, the prosecutor for the government asked you some questions about your interview with Sergeant Roble of January 31, 2004, correct?
Who's the government? I'm sorry.
These guys.
Oh, okay. Law enforcement. Okay. So, state your question again, please. I'm sorry.
The prosecutor asked you about your interview with Sergeant Roble of January 31, 2004, correct?
Correct.
That's when you say you were in your pajamas and just don't remember a lot of things, right?
Well, when the police show up, you freak out, so, yeah, that's true.
So you told Sergeant Roble in that interview that you were going to tell him everything you knew, but you didn't want to be recorded, correct?
Oh, no, that was an interview. Oh, the 2000, wait. Hold on a second. So when they came to my house and served me with a search warrant, are you talking about that particular time, or are you talking about?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
You were interviewed by Sergeant Robel on January 31, 2004, correct?
Correct.
Is that the interview you claim you gave while you were in your pajamas?
If that's the interview at the hotel, I was not in my pajamas. The time I was in my pajamas is when they first came to my house with a search warrant.
There are 9 pages of comments you made about these events in that interview, right?
I guess, if they're there.
Well, the interview took place January 31, 2004, right?
Where? Does it say where?
It says, in Los Angeles area.
Okay.
Right?
Not Calabasas?
You gave an interview on January 31, 2004, to Sergeant Robel, correct?
Right.
You said in that interview you were going to tell him everything you knew, but you didn't want it tape recorded, right?
Correct.
You were given that report recently to look at, correct?
To correct spelling. I corrected the spelling.
Well, you did a lot more than that with it, didn't you?
Well.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I made, because it was not taped. I guess not everything I know is in my head made it on that piece of paper.
So approximately 2 weeks ago would be April of 2005, correct?
Right.
Prosecutor Auchincloss gives you a police report about your interview on January 31, 2004, right?
Right. The book, or whatever.
He says, read it and correct it, right?
No. He says, look it over. Look it over. Is this information correct, to your best ability?
And you started adding the name Michael Jackson to statements you had made about Dieter, Konitzer and Schaffel.
Objection. Asked and answered. Exceeding the scope of the redirect.
Sustained.
Was your memory of these events better 2 weeks ago than it was on January 31, 2004, Mr. Provencio?
No, it's like riding a bike. You either remember or you don't remember. It's in your head or it's not. Like I remember what people wear, their shoes, if they smell. You know, weird things like that.
Now, let me get this straight. Your comments about your notes on February 1, 2003.
Okay.
You have it. You put down, February 1, 2003, on the pad, correct?
Straight up and down.
You wrote a paragraph that goes how many lines under that day?
4. But the four lines are slanted to the right. So the February 1st, 03 slanted upward and it says, family kids, and then there's a couple lines and it slants to the right.
Okay, and in that paragraph you say Schaffel made a derogatory comment about Mexican people, right?
That's correct. And I'm Mexican.
And you talk about mom flipping out in that first paragraph, correct?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
In the next paragraph, you talk about a family, right?
Well, yeah, but it's written in different writing again, so it's.
You say.
It's a different paragraph. It's a different paragraph. I'm scribbling at a different time.
You say, who are these killers? In that paragraph, right?
Yes, because the press are calling, and it's after the 24th. So they were already calling.
And you wrote those words underneath the date February 1, 2003?
The first paragraph that you are referring to.
Yes.
The first 2 lines.
Yes.
Family kids is written under February the 1st. There's a paragraph there with different kinds of handwriting, and then it shoots down to another paragraph.
Okay.
And that's, you know, those things are unrelated thoughts, and they're just scribbling thoughts.
Sir, look at the last sentence that you wrote. On the first paragraph. Do you see that?
I thought they used to be good people.
Right.
Are
you saying that that handwriting is different from the handwriting in the next paragraph?
It's similar, but I know my handwriting enough to know when I write things, so.
It's the same style of handwriting, true?
Objection. Argumentative.
Overruled.
So answer?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't believe so. I think it's different.
How is it different?
Well, first of all, family is written different. It's a different paragraph. If you take a look at the entire, if the jury could see the entire thing, there's many things on a piece of paper, and it all looks like kind of a collision, mess, because it's not meant to be an exact narrative. It's meant for me to remember certain things as they occurred.
During the last break, did you talk to Prosecutor Zonen about your testimony?
Yes. I asked a couple questions.
Did he ask you any questions?
He wanted to know about the threatening phone calls that I got.
Did he tell you anything about what you had testified to?
Yes, he asked me a question, did you tell the truth? And I told him, yes.
Did he ask you anything? Excuse me. Did he tell you anything about what he was going to ask you after the break?
No, he just asked me to clarify something for him on the date.
Did he discuss your police interview of January 31, 2004?
No.
Isn't it true that when you were interviewed by the sheriffs on January 31, 2004, you did not hand over any notes?
I don't know. Is that what it says? I'd have to look at it, but I don't. Did I not hand over notes at that time?
You didn't hand over any notes during your police interview on January 31, 2004.
When they came to my house. I sure did.
When you were interviewed in the Los Angeles area, you gave no notes, correct, to Sergeant Robel.
I did give him notes, because I even gave him the address book. I remember that.
So the report should reflect that, in your mind, right?
It should, yeah.
When did you discuss these notes you had lost? The ones you turned over a couple weeks ago.
Objection. Misstates the evidence that they were lost.
Sustained.
When did you discover the notes that you had kept in storage all this time but I believe you said you forgot about?
I had stuck them in a box. I thought they were just lost. Like I said, I just stuck them in storage.
And you found them when?
Do you want me to look? I can tell you exact dates.
Approximately.
I have the receipt right here. Do you want me to look?
Sure.
I believe I brought the receipt. Mid-April.
That's this year?
Yes, this year.
Now, Prosecutor Zonen asked you a question on redirect examination about whether you thought Debbie Rowe was honest and sincere in her responses during the interview, right?
Uh-huh.
Did you discuss that issue with him during the break?
No.
But you admit that on January 31, 2004, you told Sergeant Robel that Debbie Rowe was honest and sincere in her responses, right?
Yes, some of it was. I think some of it was.
You didn't say, some of it. You said she was honest and sincere in her responses?
Well, it wasn't recorded. I know what I meant is that some of it was sincere.
Okay.
She wanted her kids back, to see them.
Just to clarify something in your notes of February 1, 2003, you say that Mom's flipping out about something, correct?
Uh-huh, yes.
And you're referring to Mrs. Arvizo, correct?
Yes.
Whom, at that point, you had never met, right?
No, just heard about.
And that's before the Bashir documentary aired in the United States, correct?
And after the transcript was received on the 24th of January, correct?
By you, right?
I received it. Mark received it.
Do you agree that in every police interview you've done, you've never mentioned the transcript of February 24th?
I don't know if I did or didn't, but I know when I got it, because I had the email.
I have no further questions.
Do you remember to whom you turned over your notes when the police arrived at your door?
Who did I turn them over to?
Yes.
The police officers.
Do you remember which one that was?
Steve Robel and Jeff Klapakis.
Do you know whether it was Lieutenant Klapakis or if it was Sergeant Robel?
Yes, it was those two.
It was those two, all right.
Uh-huh.
Was that on the first occasion that they came to your door?
Yes.
That was at the time they had a search warrant?
Correct.
All right. The interview that took place was was there some level of interview that was done at that time, at the time of the search warrant?
Yeah, but it was like I'm outside, and it's cold, and I'm freaking out, there's cops everywhere.
Was there a follow-up interview that then took place?
Oh, yeah.
Soon thereafter?
Yep.
Approximately how long after that was the follow-up interview?
I don't remember. I just remember it was in the Calabasas area.
Do you remember if it was longer than a week or two after the initial arrive?
No, I think it was within the first 2 weeks of that.
Did you have additional notes to turn over on that occasion?
Yeah, just stuff. They asked, where's your computer? Do you have some notes? And I said, yes, there's some right here. You know, what other information? Can we talk to you outside? And I said, that's okay? And I agreed, I was scared, but I agreed to, because I just felt that that was the right thing to do.
Over the months that followed, did you take additional notes?
Yes.
And did you turn those notes over periodically to Detective Roble, Detective Sergeant Roble, or to Lieutenant Klapakis?
Yes.
No further questions.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Okay, where do I go?
Call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time we have some items to be moved into evidence. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. Your Honor, we're going to start with a series of records that have been marked as People's 250 for identification purposes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, front and back. And I believe there's a stipulation that they may come into evidence.
Yes. So stipulated, Your Honor.
In addition to that, Your Honor, there are a series of records.
Just a moment.
I'm sorry? I guess I should wait.
250 through 258?
Number, 250 only, Your Honor. That's all one document.
Those are pages 1 through 8?
For the record, I think we should say the records pertaining to Extra Jet and Chris Tucker.
That's correct.
All right, no objection. 250 is admitted.
And then there is a series of records, Your Honor, from the Country Inn and Suites which have been provided through the custodian of records, and we've had a chance to look at them. And we're moving that People's 219, 220, 221 and 222 be admitted into evidence. They're all records dealing with the Calabasas Inn.
No objection.
They're admitted.
Your Honor, Mr. Provencio was our last witness. However, there still remains the outstanding issue of the documents that are before the court under consideration, and there are one other set of records that just came in today that I need to look at with counsel, but beyond that, we'd be prepared to rest. And, also we need to go over the exhibits, because there are several exhibits that you deferred ruling on, and we need to address those. So there's some miscellaneous items that need to be done, but other than that, in terms of live witnesses, we're prepared to rest once all these are cleared up.
You're resting subject to those issues?
I am, Your Honor.
The court will make the following rulings on the 400 series, which I've been briefed by both sides on and listened to the evidence. 401 is admitted. 402 is excluded as cumulative and restricted financial information. 405 is admitted. 409 is admitted. 410 is admitted. 413 is admitted. And 423 is admitted. No, excuse me, I'm excluding 423. So then that leaves what issues?
I'm sorry.
I'm just waiting for.
We're consulting. We don't. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. Judge, there are. Do you have your court exhibit sheet handy, Your Honor?
Yes.
There are several items that have been marked for identification but have not yet been admitted into evidence. We would be moving.
I didn't know he was going to do that. Can I have a moment to get my sheet out?
Go ahead.
I was just thinking we could let the jury go a few minutes early, because we can go through the admitting of them.
That's fine, Your Honor.
Let me speak to the jury for a second.
Excuse me. Just for planning. I'm very sorry to interrupt, but there will be a motion when the people rest. For planning.
I understand that. I wanted to tell the jury that next Tuesday, the 10th, will be a half day. So we'll stop at 11:30 on that day. And then what you're suggesting, I think, is that they should come in a little later in the morning, because you're going to make a motion. They're really resting right now, and I don't think you have time to make the motion this afternoon.
I don't think so. We also have a written brief which we did not, and should not, file until they rest. So I have that.
Right.
They may want to take a look at it, so it may be more efficient to do it tomorrow morning.
Yeah, to the jury. So I think what we'll do is, court will start at the regular time and I'll hear the motion, and then I'll have you come in at. We'll start with jury at 10 o'clock. I don't want you frivolously wasting that time of your day. All right, I'll see you tomorrow morning. All right, go ahead, Counsel.
Judge, may I inquire of the court for just a moment before we start the process?
Yes.
With regard to the 418 that you excluded, was that on the basis of a lack of foundation or for some other reason? That's the check. 418, page 3.
You didn't mention 418.
I didn't rule on that. The rulings were on 401, 402, 405, 409, 410, 413 and 423, which are the documents you took testimony on today.
Okay.
That's what I was keeping track of today.
Okay.
In your briefs, you had covered other exhibits.
And we'll.
But they were not addressed today, so I didn't rule on them today.
Okay. I just was seeking clarification. And will there be an opportunity to address that, or are you going to rule on those without argument?
Well, if you're offering something, you can offer it. I mean, that's what you're doing now, is it not? Offering the rest of your exhibits.
Yes, sir. The ones that haven't been previously admitted.
Right. So just go ahead and offer them, and we'll see if there's any.
I'll do the ones that I know about, and I'll have Mr. Auchincloss do the 400 series, if that's okay with the court. The one I'd like to begin with is 294, which for the court's recollection, it was a document that was found inside of the briefcase that contained several items of adult materials and was offered for indicia of ownership and knowledge of the materials inside. It was identified by the officer and contains the initials of the defendant on the document. So we're moving that 294 be admitted.
All right, it's admitted.
Your Honor, at this point.
You need to speak into the microphone.
I just turned it on. I'm sorry. I was going to say, at this point, unless the court is absolutely clear, I don't have an absolute clear recollection, without looking at that particular exhibit, and I have notes on some of the items.
No one can hear you.
Can't hear?
No.
It's on. I've just got to bend over. What happened is the cord got shorter. Alright, all I'm saying is, if the court has a clear recollection and is prepared to rule without hearing from the defense, I understand that, but if not, I'd like to have a chance to look at that exhibit.
I'm going to admit it. And if, for some reason, you want to readdress that after you find it. I think I do have a clear recollection. But then I thought the break was at 1:45.
Okay, thank you.
The next item, Your Honor, is 349, which is the orange bottle that you took under submission and we offered as demonstrative evidence. And I believe there's case law that.
There is. That's admitted. That's clear to the jury that that's not it just looks like the bottle. It's not the bottle.
Right.
We object there was a lack of foundation, and I believe we did object, but if we didn't,
You did object, and that's why I took it under submission. And there is a couple of cases on it. One I recall about a fire can that carried gasoline to start a fire, and they lost the can, and they brought a can just like it in, and that was just to show the jury what it looked like, and that's admissible.
The next item, Your Honor, is 625, which is the series of letters between Mr. Garrigus and Mr. Dickerman.
All right, they're admitted.
We'll withdraw. I mean 630 we're not offering, because that has not been admitted.
Yes.
With regard to the series of exhibits in 823 through 829, I believe we laid the foundation when we put Detective Alvarez and Bonner on to establish the foundation for these particular exhibits that they're the ones from which the DVDs were made from, and seized by Detective Caldwell, so we would move that they be admitted.
I believe the foundation was laid. Is there any objection to that?
I just want to make sure that we don't have one in there. I understand that there's been a foundation for most of them, but I'm not sure that all of them have been. There's an independent relevance foundation laid. In other words, there's been a seizure foundation laid, that they were obtained and in the offices of Brad Miller, but there's nothing that, as I sit here, I don't know which number, but there's nothing that lays the foundation for the relevance in this case.
Judge, they're the surveillance tapes.
They were all played to the jury. They were your surveillance tapes.
That's why we thought they were in evidence.
Were they all played?
All were except 829. 829 is a duplicate of another one. It's the Micro Mini. They made a copy of the Micro Mini. We then played it off of the more conventional form, but 829, it is the micro mini that was seized, and then the one we played was the one that was duplicated onto to be able to play it.
I didn't understand that, quite frankly.
They made it. They made one from this exhibit, so he didn't show this exhibit, but he showed the copy they made from the exhibit.
And the testimony was that they're identical.
Okay, I think they showed the copies. They showed copies of all of these. They didn't show any VHS tapes. So that's not the issue. I believe there were 2 tapes that were similar, and one of them was not shown and one of them was shown.
That's 829.
So 829 was shown and 828 was not?
829 is the mini. That's the one that was not shown. Excuse me. The DVD copy of 829 was shown, so this is the foundation to show that this is the original. Yes. And this was authenticated by the officer.
Well, in terms of what the jury should get, 828 has been authenticated. We'll just put in 828. We'll leave out 829. It's in as an exhibit and it's part of the
record. That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable to us, Your Honor.
There you go.
I don't believe that's the duplicate of 828. I believe it's actually the duplicate of 825.
Okay. Same ruling.
Your Honor, since everybody's still talking and we've only got a couple minutes, I understand the court's ruling is that you're not going to let in both tapes of the same thing.
Right.
And with that ruling in mind, if there's some dispute, can we take it up later?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I believe, except for the 400 series, that covers all the issues, except for the one that I mentioned to the court about having to check with the SDT records that just came in with United Airlines. Other than that, I think oh, wait a minute. That's right. I'm sorry, Your Honor, there are 3 photographs.
Okay, what I'm going to do is.
Yeah, 45, 46 and 47 should be admitted, Your Honor.
All right, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Would you like me to address the 400 series at this time, Your Honor?
Well, no. Just tell me what other ones you want rulings on that I haven't ruled on.
I believe at this point you've excluded 402, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, we would ask that the remainder of the 400 series.
And 423.
And 423. Very well. We'd ask that the remainder of the 400 series be admitted, with the exception of the exceptions of 414 and 416.
When counsel says, the exception, Your Honor, does that mean they're withdrawn?
Yes.
I think they're not offering that.
There's numerous in the 400 series that haven't even been identified.
The only ones I'm going to consider are the ones that have been identified in court, which are the 400 series up to 424. After that, 425 through. Just so you all know, 425 through 449 haven't been identified. 460 through 469. But I think you were just talking about the 400 series ending with 423, because that's what your briefs covered.
We have some additional exhibits under the 400 series that. Let me just have a moment to look at the notebook.
While they're looking, Your Honor, you went so quickly through the numbers, when I tried to write them down, I don't think I got them all. 402 was excluded. 401 was admitted?
401 was admitted.
Okay.
402 was excluded. 405 was admitted. 409 was admitted. 410 was admitted. 413 was admitted. And 423 was excluded.
And if your question was are we offering at this time, concerning the 400 series, only up through 423, which, as you said, has been excluded, that is correct.
Well, then I can make rulings on the others.
You may. But the one thing I'd request, Your Honor, if we have a dispute about exhibits that can be remedied by additional foundation, we just ask that the court allow us to reopen to handle that evidentiary issue, if necessary.
Well, Your Honor, we had filed a written brief, and I believe we objected to all of these.
You did.
Okay, so the court has ruled on some, but not all of them.
The only ones I ruled on were the ones that they laid foundation on today.
There you go. Okay, now I understand. We did object to everything else, and I don't believe there is a foundation.
Well, that's true.
As to the remaining ones,
There are foundation problems as to other documents, there's no question.
yes.
Other than these documents that are hanging out here, what I would like to have us do is to have you rest. Subject to my rulings on that, have you serve your 1118 motion, and be prepared to argue that motion tomorrow morning, both of you. And I'll make rulings on the other documents in the 400 series that have been identified before you make your argument.
Okay. My request is just because, as you know, of the timing of the admission of these documents, we've held off on them, but normally during the course of the presentation of our case, we would have an opportunity to lay additional foundation if there was a foundational issue on any of the documents. And there may be an issue that could be remedied fairly quickly, so I just make that representation to the court, that may be a request, depending upon the outcome.
Okay.
Well, Your Honor, just so I'm clear, I would like to be able to file. I'd like to be able to serve and file the motion, and I think the court has asked us to do that. My concern. I'm sitting because I'm worried about getting too far away from that, so let me stand here. My concern is that these are documents obviously, let's put it this way. Obviously, count 1 is going to be the subject, significant subject of our motion.
Right.
And these are documents that, if they intend to reopen and call some more witnesses, we are giving them a roadmap to our objections, and they could then say, well, we said we're going to reopen, so, call in a bunch of witnesses. So I don't want that to happen, and Mr. Auchincloss was very vague in what he's requesting, so I'm going to object to what he's requesting. Either they rest or they don't rest. I understand the court can say, I'll take under submission whether these documents come in or not. That's not a problem. I just don't want to file this and have them bring in another witness, or 2, or 3.
Well, I am taking under submission whether or not any of the other 400 series would be admissible under the present state of the record. They're resting subject to that. They've said they may wish to reopen. I'm not ruling on that issue. So as of right now, you have a record. You have them resting, and all that's left is my ruling.
Based on that, Your Honor, thank you for clarifying that. Based on that, I will serve in open court a copy of a motion for judgment of acquittal under 1118.1, and I'll file the original and provide 2 copies to the clerk. And we'll expect to argue that tomorrow, if that's all right.
Right. All right. Then court's in recess. I'll see you tomorrow at 8:30.
Thank you, Your Honor. Oh, Your Honor, not to take time, but there is one other motion that was still pending.
I'll rule on that in the morning. I haven't had time. I got that late this morning. I haven't had time to. I read it. That's all I've done with it, so.
Okay.
That's the motion to dismiss. The mistrial.
The mistrial in the Griffin, Doyle.
I'll rule on that before you argue in the morning.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.